What's up, guys, and welcome to my review for Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, the second review in my Pirates of the Caribbean series. If you did watch my review for the first film, I just want to say at the end of that video, there were some technical errors that I am aware of. The audio repeated itself. The end of the audio repeated itself for a second time, and then the trailer just sort of cuts before it even ends, and that's not the way I edited. I have no idea what happened there. I do apologize for that, but I already had posted the whole entire video, so it's just going to stay like that. That's just how it is. But I just wanted to say that I am aware that that it was like that. But now that that's out of the way, let's get into the Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, the second film in the series. The film came out in 2006. And, you know, you could go into this film and, you know, if you want a synopsis, what is the plot of the movie? And I guess the easiest way you could say the plot of this film, because there is a lot of stuff that kind of happens throughout, like a lot of plot elements that are kind of introduced in this movie. The way that I guess you could say is, you know, Jack Sparrow, he had a deal with Davy Jones. You know, and in this film, the deal has come to an end. So now Davy Jones has sent the Kraken, his beast, you know, the Kraken after Jack. So that's pretty much the basic plot of the movie. There's a lot of other things that happen throughout. Now, there are going to be spoilers in this video, just like there were for my review of the first film. You know, so as this movie opens up, we get this this wedding. Elizabeth Swann and Will Turner's wedding. They're supposed to be getting married, but it gets crashed. The wedding gets crashed by the East India Trading Company, and Lord Cutler Beckett, this is the first time we see this character. He comes in with this kind of very haunting introduction, a very dark kind of introduction. The movie doesn't open very happy. The movie opens very dark, but if you think about it, it's a very similar way that the first movie opened. Kind of very dark, and then we get into all the fun stuff. But in this movie, it does take a little bit of time to get to the fun stuff. You know, eventually Elizabeth is put in jail. Will is supposed to be put in jail as well, but he makes a deal with Beckett. You know, if Will gets Jack's compass to Beckett, then he will free Elizabeth and pretty much clear their names. So Will now goes off on this quest to find Jack Sparrow to get his compass. So, meanwhile, you know, we are introduced to Jack, and he's kind of escaped this kind of prison almost kind of thing where they kind of dump the dead bodies in coffins into the ocean. Well, he's in with this dead body, and it's a pretty funny introduction. Actually, it might be my second favorite introduction to Jack in the whole series as of yet. You know, the first movie's introduction to him can't really be topped. You know, his introduction on the top of the little boat, and then as it sinks, you know, that whole entire thing. I don't think that necessarily could be topped, but he does have a pretty fun introduction in this movie. And then we get to see the crew again in the Black Pearl, and this is where Jack realizes, well, not realizes, but he shows us as an audience what he's looking for, and that's the key to the chest. And at this point in the movie, we really don't know what the chest is. We don't really know what the key is. Well, we know the keys to the chest, but we don't really know the significance of it yet. But we do start to get a little bit of information about the overall story of the movie. So it's kind of teased to us throughout. Kind of like in the first movie, how they kind of teased us information about Bootstrap Bill Turner. It was kind of teased throughout the movie, and in the end, pretty much teased us the curse. You know, we don't get to see the pirates in their skeleton glory till about, what, 50 minutes into that movie? You know, so it's like the same kind of thing. It's a setup of this chest and what it's about. And we do get to see Bootstrap Bill Turner in the beginning of this movie. We see that he is now part of Davy Jones's crew, and he's a member of the Flying Dutchman, Davy Jones's ship. And pretty much Jones sends Bootstrap to Jack and says, hey, look, Davy Jones is coming for you. He's going to send the Kraken after you. Now that the Kraken is going to know where you are because you have the black spot. And Bootstrap kind of gives Jack the black spot. So this kind of freaks Jack out, so they get to land as quickly as they can. They land at Isla Pelagosta, or however you pronounce it. It's the island with the cannibals and the cannibal people. So they capture, Jack's crew. We don't see this happen, but they're all captured. The rest of the crew is put in these bone cages, while Jack acts as their chief, which they think he's some kind of god, and eventually they're going to cook him and they're going to eat him, I guess. So they all feel the same kind of heavenly way, I guess. I really am not sure the exact detail of that. That's what I got from it. But this leads to, Will finding Jack on the island. And this is the first time in the film that we get a fun action sequence. And it takes about, 25 minutes to a half hour to actually get there. When in the first movie we get the first really action sequence of the movie is when Jack escapes Norrington and his men. When he's saved Elizabeth, after all that. And that takes place about, 15 minutes into the movie, something like that. This takes about 30 minutes in to where we actually get our first big action set piece. And it's fantastic. I think this action sequence, it is wonderful, and it was wonderfully done. It's about a 10-minute sequence, and it's brilliant. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's really well done. It's really well shot and everything. I think the thing about this film in particular, and the last film, and I could say that with the next movie too, is the cinematography with these action sequences. I did mention the set pieces for the action sequences in my review for the first movie, but this one, the set pieces are just as fantastic, on this island to start with, but yeah, the action stuff is fantastic. It's shot wonderfully, and Gore Verbinski really knows how to direct an action sequence. This is all very fantastic. And then they get off of the island and they get back to the Black Pearl, where they say, look, we have to kind of stay as close to the shallows as you possibly can. We have to go to Teodalma. And at this point, there's a great little line between Jack and Will, where Will says, I need your compass to save Elizabeth, and Jack says, I'll give you the compass if you find me this key. And Will goes, this is going to save Elizabeth, and Jack just goes, what do you know about Davy Jones? This is the first time we kind of really hear about him in the film. And Will says, not much, really great delivery, and then Jack is just like, yep, it's going to save Elizabeth. Fantastic line. I still laugh to that to this day. Really great stuff in there. But so in the meanwhile, Elizabeth, she escapes the prison. Or she didn't really escape, but her father gets her out and she meets up with Beckett. Let's just say Elizabeth escapes Port Royal and she ends up on this ship with all these men. She's the only woman on the ship, but she disguises herself as a man, to fit in. And all of this stuff really is not explained enough in the movie. These people, you could see that they're kind of being screwed over by the East India Trading Company. They're being taxed and all this kind of stuff, or whatever the case may be. And, all these characters that you don't really care about. This was just a way for Elizabeth to ultimately get to Tortuga. So she just gets on the ship with all these random people, and then they get to Tortuga. She kind of lights the words Tortuga and fire on the deck of the ship. It's all kind of interesting, but it's not really anything that makes any sense, or really adds to the plot. It's just a way for her to get to point A to point B. And Jack and Will and the rest of the Black Pearl, the crew, they get to Teodalma. This is the first time we see her, and we understand that she has given Jack his compass, and they've gone there to pretty much seek help, and to try to find out if she knows anything. Where's the chest, where's the key, and all this stuff. And this is the scene where we do get a little bit of exposition on Davy Jones, and he put his heart in a chest, and all this stuff. So it's great. I don't think in this scene they really explain why he's all tentacly, but the reason why he is like that is because he has to ferry souls to the next world. And if he doesn't do that, and if he fails to do that, then he becomes all tentacly with his ship, the Flying Dutchman. But when we first see Davy Jones in this movie, which takes place shortly after the Tia Dalma stuff. The first time we do see Davy Jones in this film, it's a great entrance, and I do think that this is my favorite entrance of a villain in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. You know, Davy Jones's entrance was phenomenal and fantastic, but you know, we see him with all these people, who I assume to be dead, that have passed on, and now that are on this ship, which I assume it's not the Flying Dutchman. It might be the Flying Dutchman. I don't know what the hell this little thing is. It seems like a ship that crashed, and now Davy Jones came onto this ship, and he's talking to these few survivors or people that died or whatever the case may be, and he says, "Do you fear death? You know, and you know, will you join my crew, or what are you gonna do?" Some of them do join the crew, some of them don't, and the ones that don't, they get killed, and the ones that do, you know, I guess they're gonna become fish people, you know, because they're dead as far as I'm aware. It's not very clear. Talking about it right now, it sounds good in your head, but when you're saying these things, it's very hard to explain. But you go with it, and I've gone with it, and I've had fun with it. They really introduce some very complicated things that maybe weren't clearly said to us or clearly explained to us. You know, with the third movie too, you kind of get a grasp of everything that's happened, but none of it's really 100%. So Davy Jones pretty much he meets up with Jack, and he says, "Look at you know, the deal that we had is broken," and Jack says, "You know what? Give me 3 days." Or Davy Jones says, "I'll give you 3 days. You know, get me 100 souls, and then I'm pretty sure that their deal would be good, and it would be done, and those would be the 3 days." And Davy Jones needs 100 souls from Jack, and you know, as Will Turner's on the Dutchman, he has to stay there. Davy Jones says, "You know, I'll keep the boy a good faith payment, and that leaves you only 99 more souls to go." So this is where Jack and the Black Pearl now go to Tortuga, where Elizabeth is. You know, that's where she went with the other crew. Why did they go to Tortuga, though, is beyond me. Is just because the sign in the fire says Tortuga, but we never see them there. The only person from that whole crew of men we see on Tortuga is Elizabeth. So I don't know where they were, if they just let her get out. I don't really know, but that's what happened. Yeah, and we see Commodore Norrington. You know, he's washed up. You know, he's retired from his post, and now he's just kind of this dirty old man. He's not an old man, but he's just this dirty man that's really fallen from grace. And he joins the Black Pearl at this point, and there's this fun little sequence in Tortuga with this great piece of music, Two Hornpipes, I believe the track is called. But we get off Tortuga, and then we cut back to the Flying Dutchman a few times. Will Turner has a reunion with his father, which is nice. And you know, he gets the key. You know, after playing this dice game, which really isn't explained either, but as they play it, you kind of say, "Oh, is that how it works? You know, this is how it goes." I did own the game. I physically owned the dice game, which I even played a few times, and I still don't understand the damn thing. You have to guess how many of a 5 there are underneath everybody's little bucket, or whatever the case may be. I don't know. So after Will gets the key from Davy Jones, he escapes, and he gets onto the same ship that Elizabeth was on, how she got to Tortuga. He gets on that same ship. Don't ask me how they met up or how he found the ship. They were going in the same direction, I guess. So Will gets on that ship, and this is the first time we actually see the Kraken in its glory. It's about an hour and a half into the movie, and it's great. it's a great sequence. Pretty much these characters were just introduced to be killed off. You're not supposed to care about any of them. They're just there for the Kraken to kill, and for us to see how powerful the Kraken really is. Will escapes, and I guess swims to Isla de Muerte. Or he gets on the Flying Dutchman, like he holds on to the Dutch. I'm not really sure. I don't really remember what happened there. I would assume that he holds on to the Dutchman for a little bit of the way, and then gets to the island where the chest is. It's almost physically impossible to swim that far. I mean, maybe it's not. I have no idea. But yeah, he gets there. He gets to the island. And, back on the Black Pearl, when all this is cutting back and forth, we really get more scenes of nothing. Really nothing happens on the Pearl at this point. We already, hear information again that we already know. Beckett wants the chest, he wants to control the sea, blah, 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 blah. There's this unnecessary tension, sexual tension, that's built between Jack and Elizabeth. Which really is only to pay off at the end of the film, so it's really out of left field, really out of nowhere. I guess these people are just trying to get it on. He wants to know what it tastes like, she wants him to know what it tastes like, and, he just wants his jar of dirt at the end of the day, which Teodalma gives Jack earlier in the movie. But all of this does come to a head at Isla Cruces, which is the name of the island where the chest is buried. They use the compass to get there, the Black Pearl, and there's this action sequence that takes place. The climax of the film begins. Now this is what the whole entire film is led up to. Will versus Norrington versus Jack for the key for the chest, but at the same time the chest is left vacant, which Pinto and Righetti, I didn't even mention them in this review, but they come into the movie. And they're great. I love these characters. They're there for the comedic relief, and they're wonderful. They're great characters. And they take the chest. Elizabeth notices this, so she goes to fight them as the guys are fighting over here. And at the same time, Davy Jones's crew is coming onto the island, and everything is just coming to a head. All hell is about to break loose, and it leads to a really phenomenal action sequence. Say what you want about the rest of the movie. I personally don't think it's bad. I think it's a little confusing at times, or convoluted. The only reason why I'm not really confused watching the thing in my head is because I've seen these movies so many times, and I know what happens, and I could kind of put two and two together. But if you're just watching this movie for the first time, it could be a little cloudy for you, and I do understand that. But you can't deny that the action sequence at the end of this film is absolutely phenomenal. All the stuff on the island, the whole wheel thing, with the abandoned kind of building, and they get on this wheel and they're rolling. I used to have that when I was younger. I had this play set, and it was the wheel and the building there, and you got the three characters, and there was little stands on the wheel on the top, and the thing would roll, and they would stand there, and you could have them fight each other. That was fun, and I remember that, I did grow up with these movies. I don't know if I mentioned that. Honestly, it's about a 25-minute action sequence from land to on the Pearl and the Dutchman fighting each other to the Kraken coming up and having this action sequence. It is all very wonderful and entertaining. Very entertaining. This might be some of the best action in the whole entire series. That sequence, the climax of this movie, it is that good, in my opinion. I think it's great. As of yet, I would say the first two movies, it's the best action sequence that they've done yet. Better than any of the action from the first movie, and this really topped all that. It was brilliant, and it kind of makes up for the rest of the movie being a little confusing to other people. It's really great action, great entertainment. And the movie comes to a close. Jack Sparrow gets eaten by the Kraken. Elizabeth Swann pretty much sacrifices him. She locks him to the post of the Black Pearl, and the crew get away. Cotton Gibbs, Will, Marty, Pinel, Righetti, Will, all of them. They get away, and they are on a little rowboat, and they get to Teodalma on a rowboat. So yeah, that's what happens there, I suppose. Another one of those little things that really don't add up 100%, but you just go with it. Or for me, I just go with it because of how much fun I did have with this movie. This is a fun film. I mean, it's from the sequence in the beginning of the movie, the action sequence that takes place a half hour in on the island with the cannibals, and the sequence at the end of the movie. Two absolutely phenomenal action sequences, set pieces combined in this film. It really makes up for it, for me anyway, for all the stuff that might be a little confusing, which I do understand for the most part. But I do love this movie. You know, I do love it. I could understand why people don't like it, or after the first one, people weren't, like, that was a fun movie, you know, you could follow along with the plot. It really wasn't that convoluted. You could follow along with it, and the action was fun, and there was a little more action in that one, I would say, than this one. But when there is action in this one, it's great. But in this one, it is a little more confusing. When people went to see this movie, I think they were expecting the same thing, but what they got was a little more of a serious story with a lot more happening that wasn't 100% clear. Some of it was, but some of it was a little shady. But I do love this film. I could watch it, and I understand that there might be a couple things that are off with it, but that doesn't really affect my viewing experience of it because the movie is so damn fun. I'm going to give Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest a 4.5 out of 5 stars. That's right, I'm going to give it the same thing I gave the first movie. I love them both equally. You know, they're great films in my opinion. They're great pieces of entertainment. And they're fun, you know. I think people overreact when they say these movies are bad. I don't think they're bad, but that's just my opinion. But guys, comment your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think about Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest? What is your favorite one of the series? You know, what are your thoughts on this movie? Feel free to comment below. And guys, you could also subscribe to this channel because last Friday I posted my review for Guardians of the Galaxy in preparation to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I did review. That video actually went up today, so you could check that out. And this series continues next week, next Friday, with Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Guys, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. The links to those are in the description of this video. And you could also follow me on Snapchat at RyanKing72 and on Instagram at KingArises131. Guys, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching my review for Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest. Over and out.